Well, 2017 is just about at an end, and I figured I'd come on and talk about my personal highlights for the gaming year of 2017. Now, last year I did a sort of a highlights and lowlights video, but I'm not going to touch the lowlights this year. If you've been following the channel, if you've been listening to my critical takes, those are a lot of the times my lowlights of the year. So I'm just going to focus on the positive moments I've had in the hobby. And some of these are exclusive to 2017, and then some of them deal with games that were released at the end of 2016, and even before that. So this is just what I was up to in the year 2017. And I'll start off with what everyone considers to be the best game of 2017, and I would agree with that, and that's Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This was a game that obviously we were all looking forward to, and that I certainly enjoyed. And I came on and I made some videos talking about how it is not the greatest game of all time, and I stand by those videos. To me, it was really not even my favorite Zelda. That will always be a link to the past. But this was new, it was unique, it was different, it was just a beautiful world. And my criticism of the game was that a lot of the mechanics that it gave you to work with inhibited your exploration of that world. The stamina system, the crafting mechanics that you really were forced to do to get to certain places in the game, the lack of weapon durability and things like that, and constantly having to craft new weapons. To me, that all got in the way of what should have been a kind of beautiful, free-form exploration and puzzle game, which, once you got past all of that, it was. So to me, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild will be one of those games that you acknowledge is brilliant, but you're not always going to be in the mood to play it, or at least that's where I find myself. I put it in the other night. It updated. I have it on the Wii U. It updated for about an hour, and I went in, and I just, after a long day, I wasn't in the mood to craft and collect. So it's going to be like one of those movies that is great, but you're just not always in the mood to watch it. I may return to it at some time. I might pick it up on the Wii U if and when I get one of those. But I don't think you can deny that this was a remarkable game. And it was just the direction, sort of the concept that the Zelda series needed. It's funny, for all of the complaining that I do about the industry, I always say that, there are still some gems in the rough. There are still some games that, you don't think would be great, but that really are. And for me, that would be Titanfall 2. I enjoyed the first Titanfall. It was one of the few online shooter games that I actually put any decent amount of time into. And Titanfall 2 came out, I guess, towards the end of 2016. And for me, it was just like, I don't want to pay full price for this. This is not that interesting. I'll just wait till it's on sale. And then it was on sale. And I was like, I do not feel the need to play any shooters. And then it showed up on EA Access, and I downloaded it and played it actually on the Xbox One X. And it played beautifully. I know some people said that there were sort of technical difficulties with that, or that it wasn't performing even up to the PS4 Pro standard, but I had nothing to compare it to, so I played through this game. And this was one of, if not the best shooter I think I've ever played. It was, it had all of the great platforming and parkour action. It had great shooting mechanics. It felt good. It wasn't too difficult. It had the most enjoyable set-piece moments that I've played in a shooting game, and some just absolutely incredible environments. I mean, this was, I would go so far as to say, it is a masterpiece in the world of first-person shooters. I know it didn't sell well. I know it never became that online shooter to play. But I think this is tremendous. So if you could play it on EA Access, it's definitely worth a shot. But if you can pick it up for a low price, or any price, it is worth it. It was one of those games that kind of said, or where I said to myself, maybe I shouldn't have these prejudices. This was a game that I would have picked up at full price and enjoyed. Nonetheless, it's an EA game, or at least it's put out by EA, and I don't think it had any serious microtransactions. I don't really, they sort of wash over me, but I just, this was a great first-person campaign and a just wonderful, wonderful game. Well, Persona 5 also came out in 2017. You went from Zelda right into Persona, and Persona 5, a game that I was very much looking forward to. Got into the series with Persona 3 and played the heck out of that, Persona 4, and so I was ready for Persona 5, and it did not disappoint. This was a fun game. It had, just the evolution of that Persona style that made these games stand out amongst all other RPGs, and I think amongst all other games, period. It just sort of took that to the next level. Everything about this game was incredibly stylish, down to the menus and the crafting and all of that. I mean, or not the crafting, the sort of Persona synthesis. Everything looked great. The combat was fun. It was a traditional turn-based combat. Didn't deviate too wildly from what you experienced in the other series. The only difference was that rather than the sort of the self-generating labyrinths, you actually had sort of pre-made levels. And I thought they were good. A lot of people love them. They said, oh, this was, a throwback to like the NES days where you just had all these different levels with different styles. Yeah, to me, it got a little tedious. I actually think that the best parts of the Persona games, granted, I do enjoy the grinding to a degree. Less interested in the Persona Fusion as a mechanic, although they've streamlined it to a point where it's relatively easy to do. It's not something you have to spend a ton of time with if you don't want to. The story was, your sort of typical anime story, but it's that experience in the overworld that I've always enjoyed more, and the quality of that in this game was very good. So, satisfying game. I didn't finish it only because I just got sidetracked with other things, but I've always said, and people have criticized me for it, I don't mind, playing through a game 60-70% and just letting it sit and having something to go back to that I know I'm going to enjoy this, and it's off there in the future, and when I really want to have some fun, I'll pop this game in. So that's where I'm at with Persona. I may actually, over the winter, the long, dark winter months, a good time, I think, for RPGs, so I'll throw it in at that point and finish the game. But, really, to me, lived up to the hype. I really enjoyed this one. Now, this next game is a real oddball. This is a PS Vita visual novel called Root Letter. And I believe this came out towards the end of 2016. I had discovered it late winter, early spring of 2017. And the reason why I did that was, I have the PS Vita. It's collecting dust, and there was just a whole list of these oddball Japanese games, and I said, I'm going to pick one of them and just buy it and play it. I had no idea what this was. I don't know why I picked it. Just figured, why not let me at least give one of these games a shot. And this turned out to be one of the more unique gaming experiences that I've had this year and in a long time. This is a visual novel. There is not any action. It's almost like a point-and-click kind of adventure game. Its main mechanic tends to be a guessing game. You're interviewing people, and you have to figure out, the right pressure question at the right time to kind of advance the story. Apparently, based on how you manage that and how effective your answers are in progressing the story, means you can get a whole bunch of different endings. I just didn't have time to go back and replay it. So it's not, these games are not engaging. Visual novels are not engaging. But for about a week, I sat down, before bed, just laid there and played this. It's a story about nostalgia from almost a secondhand perspective. You have a 30-something-year-old protagonist who tries to find his pen pal from high school. Reads through her letters, goes back to her hometown, and kind of tries to experience, figure out what happened to her. and kind of see the world through the nostalgia that she might have if she were there in person and not just a consciousness writing a letter. So it was a really interesting kind of narrative angle to it. But the art was wonderful. I don't like the new age anime, sort of computer drawn anime, but I think it works in a game. Very, very nice soundtrack, just a wonderful small town Japanese setting, and just an interesting story. I would have never thought that I would like a game like this, but I was going through my desk drawer and I found the little PS Vita game card, and it just brought back memories of this game, this week that I spent in this little world, and it was terrific. So it's not going to be for everyone, but it's a game I definitely recommend, and a game that, for me, is a highlight of 2017. Now, a lot of people don't talk about this in the mainstream of the video game hobby, but the racing genre is in a golden age, and I think we saw that this year with the release of Project Cars 2, obviously Gran Turismo Sport. You had the Forza Horizon game, which admittedly was marred with the microtransaction nonsense. But then you also had established racing games like Assetto Corsa, like R Factor 2, just get better and better. Automobilista, which I talked about earlier this year, a great game. So you have all of these racing games delivering their utmost, and you don't see that. So a lot of times you buy a game and you're disappointed. If you are in any way into racing, on the Steam sale that I'm guessing is going to start in a couple days, pick up R Factor 2, Assetto Corsa, Automobilista, or indeed Project Cars 2. And for the money, I mean, you get tons of tracks, tons of cars, in some of the cases with Assetto Corsa and R Factor 2, tons of mods. And these are games that allow you to play them any way you want to play them. You want to do a real 24-hour endurance race and sit there for 24 hours, you can do that. If you just want to do a couple hot laps, do 5 minutes of qualifying, 3 laps of racing, just go from track to track, car to car, you can do that and everything in between. So I'm not an auto sports fan, which I've always said if a sports game is good, it gets you into a sport that you're not a fan of. And that's what these games have done for me. Am I watching car racing a lot? No. But I will turn it on from time to time. I'll turn on a Formula One race. If you've driven on some of these tracks and they're so intricately detailed and represented in these games, and you actually kind of know, they're going through that curve in Monza, they should be doing this or that. So it opens up the world of auto racing to you if you have any interest in driving these exotic cars. Which I've always had that. And then you combine it with a wheel, and I said that I sold my wheel. I did, and then now here at Black Friday, I picked up another wheel, just essentially the wheel that I sold, Logitech G29. I had tried out a Thrustmaster, but it just didn't work with the pedals for the kind of setup that I have. And when you plug a wheel into these games, it just takes it to another level of detail, which isn't to say that you can't enjoy them on the PC with an Xbox One controller, because that is an excellent experience. And I may do a video talking about why that is. You don't need a $300-400 wheel to enjoy these games. The Xbox controller is great. But when you do have the wheel and you get to experience that level of detail that these games give you, this is a genre that's delivering with every release. It's delivering post-release. It's not very buggy. And I think it's definitely worth checking out any of these games, if not all of them, just to see what modern gaming at its high point, at its most customer-focused, single game, supported for a long time, high point is. A lot of the times we're let down by what you buy, but I have not been let down by any of these games. Even Gran Turismo Sport, which was a little low on content, I still got some enjoyment out of that. Now, a big part of my gaming year was the decision to pick up the Xbox One X, which I didn't think I was going to do because I had my concerns about reliability, and I've been burned as an early adopter of so many things, but The time rolled around. I had a gift card, so I could basically get it for half price. And I picked it up, and I was glad that I did. The Xbox One X, I do think, is a very good piece of hardware. Mine is extremely quiet, extremely cool. I can play it for hours. And unlike the PS4 Pro, where the fan kicks in, it sounds like a jet engine or something that's about to melt in your room. Xbox One X just is quiet and solid. The games are noticeably better, like I said, with Titanfall. But I've played games like the Gears of War, which put that on performance mode. It is very impressive. Now, I don't particularly care for that game. It's just a big, dumb, explosion-filled shooter. But as a tech demo, it's very good. So it's kind of allowed me to take the Xbox One into my game room. It was previously in my home theater, and I didn't really use it a lot. And that's kind of where I am now with the system. Now that I've gotten over that initial rush of downloading all of the HD 4K patches and playing it in a more convenient setting, I do think the Xbox as a platform has a problem that there's really not that much to play, but as a third-party, as a console now that's going to play third-party games, supposedly, the best, it should breathe some life into it, and I can just hope that the Microsoft exclusives come rolling out, because, quite frankly, to me, they've had the best exclusives. At least they did early on. I haven't played some of the newer Sony games, but I think from a hardware standpoint, the Xbox One X is an extremely convincing package. I can only hope that the software side follows up. And then lastly, and I think this is one of the reasons why 2015 will go down for me as one of the better recent years of gaming, is that really my favorite franchise from 2009, 2010 until right now has been the Yakuza series. And it is always a process, just waiting to get Yakuza games here in the West. I waited years for Yakuza 5. Waited for Yakuza 4, it seemed like, for a long time, though not as long as I waited for 5. And then 2017, we get 2 excellent Yakuza games, Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami, which is, I guess, it's a remake of, or retelling of, the first Yakuza game with the Yakuza 0 engine. And these games were tremendous on the PlayStation 4. Finally, we got those, a look at what Yakuza can be on the next generation. And I was thrilled. I had a wonderful, wonderful time with these games. Yakuza has everything. It's just one of those games that seems like it was what I dreamed about as a kid. I've always said what the Yakuza series is essentially is a combination of Streets of Rage with RPG mechanics plus Japanese cultural oddities. And that's a strong package. Fighting in these games is much better, much more fluid, animates better. I actually think that the moves have been somewhat reduced in comparison to Yakuza 5, but that's another story. It's not doing anything different from a narrative standpoint. It's a mafia tale, a tale of intrigue and betrayal, and it's always the person you least expect, or the story tidbit that you think is going nowhere that winds up to be the kind of huge conflict. But that being as it is, I love Yakuza. And to get 2 games in 1 year is special, and 2 good games. And games that you could sink 30 hours into, 40 hours, well, in the case of Yakuza 0, maybe Yakuza Kiwami might have been a 20, 25 hour game. I actually finished it pretty quickly. And then I have, Yakuza 6 supposedly coming out in March. So it's a great time to be a Yakuza fan. And I can only hope that the momentum created in 2017 carries through and that these games sell well, because these are the most unique video games out there. Like I said, I love playing a game that was really not created for my home market. It still feels special and different. And the fact now, I was playing the Yakuza 3 demo on the Japanese PlayStation and thinking to myself, what the heck is this game? I wish I could read this. I wish I could play this. And the idea that we got any of them, not to mention now all of them in English, is, I think, unique. And I can only hope that more people get into this series. Yeah, it's repetitive. It's not the open world in the sense that Grand Theft Auto is the open world, but it has incredible attention to detail, and there's just nothing like it. So that was my highlight of 2017. And yeah, I can only hope that these positive experiences continue forward into 2018.